Hi everyone, I am Miss Isra Zinat, the head trainer of Tesla. In this video, this video is the prelude of Junior IELTS Level 1. Now right here, this is actually lesson 1. In the next few following videos, you'll be taken through lessons 1 to 10 in depth. Now, let's start with the basics. So, almost all of the lessons are similar, but some lessons do have some uniqueness to them, some different worksheets. So now today over here, I'm going to show you lesson 1 and the basics that almost all lessons hold. So the first part is always unscrambling the words. Now over here, what happens is that we've got 4 verbs over here, which need to be explained to the students by you, either in your native language, or you can explain it maybe through Google Images, Google Translate, whichever way works best for the student and for you. After that, give the students some time, about 4 minutes, to unscramble and try to write down the sentences. After that, check the answers with them and make sure to let them read their sentences. And then after that, we have at the bottom over here, sentence making. So now we have different sections. We have one for primary and we have one for form students. Form students means secondary students. So for primary students, we try to keep it easy. So they only need to write one sentence per word. So one sentence for Chase, and then for secondary students, what they need to do is to make a paragraph using these 4 words. Now, it may be hard for some students, so you can help them along the way, guide them. And now the next part, let's go ahead to getting back to the next part. Over here, what we need to do is pattern recognition. Okay, now over here, as we can see, these are the verbs. These are all the verbs. So now this is a root word, the infinitive. We have meet, we have mow, and overtake, and pay. Firstly, we will need the teachers, the instructors will need to explain these words to the students. After explaining them, those who have not done this before and are new to this method, the instructors will need to explain that. Now over here in the below sentence, for example, mommy and daddy want to blank. So now this is the verb and the students have to choose one of them. Now the hint is right over here before the verb. Now for to, we know that to meet. So you can ask students to find the word to over here in the bigger part. And then once they find it, they will know it's present tense and to is right over here. So if to is here, after to it should be meet. So they know that it is to meet. Meet is the correct answer. And just like that, this is pattern recognition. And that's how they will build their sentence structuring and go ahead to write better sentences. So after the sentence, we have phrasal verbs. So now for phrasal verbs, there are 3 phrasal verbs for now. So we have check up on, come across, come along with. Now, most lessons we try and repeat to revise the students, see if they remember the phrasal verbs from the previous lessons. So every lesson we try to give them something different, something new, so that they can learn it and they are able to use it, because phrasal verbs for some students or for most are harder to learn. So after explaining the meaning to them, what you can do is give them 1 or 2 minutes to try and finish these 3 questions. Now after that, remember to check their answers. And how you can check their answers is to let them read the whole question, the whole answer out loud. It's to read this thing out loud, the whole sentence. And then after that is done, we move on to idioms. Now for idiom, the first part is matching the explanation with the idioms. And then the next part is writing down these idioms right below over here on the blanks over here. So these are the explanations. You can let the students know, you can explain it a little bit more to them. And then sentence making, once again, remember to let them read these out loud so that they can practice their speaking out loud, their public speaking. Okay, after finishing the idioms, we move on. Sorry, now for the idioms, for the first part, which is this one, you can give them about 3 minutes. And then afterwards, for the next part, once again, 2 to 3 minutes should be good. Okay, let's move on to the next part, synonyms. Now for synonyms, we have about 8 questions. So do remember to let them try and do it themselves first, these first 8 questions. For these one, you can give them about 5 to 7 minutes, depending on how quick they've learned it or how good they are. And then afterwards, we go ahead to making sentence once again. Now this is to practice their writings. Now for this one, you can give them about 3 minutes, 1 minute per word to make sentences, once again for primary students, but you can also give it to secondary students if they like writing. Now for secondary students, we do have a different part, but if you believe that the secondary students aren't ready to write this one, you can go with that one, but we do highly suggest giving secondary students to practice with this as they will be writing a lot. So now, once again, for form students, for secondary students, they will need to write a paragraph using these 4 words. Now you can just suggest the length of the paragraph to be maybe 50 words. It can be 100 words, but do not cross 100 words or more than 100 words because that will be too much and that is more for a bigger sense. Okay, so let's go ahead to the next part. Now, after that, we have listening. So for the listening is American listening. So you can just press right here, have the students listen to it, and you can listen to it as well. And remember to listen carefully because you will need to explain why the answer is the answer. For example, what's the boy's name? Now, after listening to the recording, the boy's name is Michael because the adult asked boy. So you have to listen carefully as well. And remember, for each of these parts, remember to ask the student to read the question and the answer out loud, to let them read most of it to practice. And then after the listening exercise, the first listening exercise, we have a comprehension exercise to evaluate and revise whether they remember what they heard in the recording. So these are 5 questions which should take about 2 minutes each, which should take about 2 minutes. And then we have the second listening, which goes the same. So the listening should only be played once for the students. And then once again, we have comprehension exercise to revise. And then moving on to the next part, we have adjectives. So the first, now these are worksheets, so extra worksheets. So adjective 12, pick out the adjective phrases in the following sentences. Okay, so we will also be able to give you our answers so that you can prepare ahead and also remember to explain the sentences carefully. So if it's a bit hard for the students, what you can do is do 1 to 3 with them and then let them do the rest of it by themselves to see if they understand. If they still don't understand, try to do one by one with them and let them do the rest or try to guide them a little bit more. Okay, and then let's move on to the next part. Error correction. Once again, same rule applies. So what they need to do here is, so you give them some time to do it first. Once they get used to it, they will be able to do it themselves. But for first, what you can do is part it from three questions, help them understand these three, which will give them which will give them ease when doing 4 to 10. So for adjectives, now for 10 questions, since this is a bit hard, you can give them about 7 to 8 minutes, but do not give them too long. And for error corrections, you can give them about 6 to 7 minutes. So what they need to do is just correct this word, the word that is underlined right over here. Same goes for the rest of the questions. Now let's move on to the next part. So next part usually is passive voice and preposition, as we can see over here. So the passive voice is to use will or will be. Now for passive voice, once again, you can explain the first three and do it with them with a bit of guidance. Next 7, you can let the students do it by themselves to see how much they've understood. If they still don't understand, you can help them out a bit more, try to rub the answers. And let them do it one more time. So, for example, number 1, the house built here. So, it should be the house will be built here. Passive voice, of course. And then for this one as well, you can give them about 8 minutes, but not too long. And then let's move ahead to the next part, which is preposition. Now, for this preposition, they have over here hints on what they can put for the next few sentences. So for some of the preposition worksheets, there aren't hints. Some of them, they do have hints. So over here, luckily, we have hints. So this will help the students a lot more because they can try and match it to see which one sounds the best. And also do remember to explain why we use this preposition instead of the incorrect preposition to help them understand more. Once again, for this one, you can give them 5 to 6 minutes as it is easier. Let's move ahead to the next part. Now, the next part, this one is actually the easy reading. So these are mainly for primary students. So this is Hong Kong reading. It's for primary students. So there are about 9 questions here. But since this is quite easy at a primary level, we usually give them about 3 minutes, which is more than enough to let them finish the questions. And for this, since it's an easy reading, even although there are a lot of sentences here, maybe more than 100 words, but we still allow them time without reading this letter, without reading the diary page. We allow them time, and then afterwards we check the answer with them. Once again, let them read both the question and the answer, and also do ask them where they found the answer. That's very important because we don't want them to guess. We want them to know where they can find the answers. And then next part, we go ahead to the reading comprehension. Now, this is the American reading comprehension. So with each lesson, we have a reading comprehension for the students to do for now. So now for this one, if you're teaching a group class, what we would like to do is each student would read a fair amount of sentences so that everyone gets a chance to speak, and do help them a little for some of the harder words to pronounce. For example, miniature, Thumbelina, or maybe dozens, or San Diego over here. So do help them out a little for reading, especially if they're new to this. So after reading the whole comprehension, do try to stay away from explaining all of it at once, because they will need to answer the questions below, and we want to try and let them do it themselves first. And after answering, you can help them understand it more so they have a better experience and can have a better revision. So after reading, you can give them, now since over here we have about 10 questions in total for every American reading, we have about 10 questions. So we've got 10 questions. You can give them about 8 minutes. 8 minutes should roughly be enough over here. 8 minutes should be enough. So after they have finished, remember to let them read the answer and the question, and also ask them where they got their answers from, which line, which paragraph, or why they think that should be the answer. And that's mainly it for the reading comprehension. And lastly, we go ahead to the writing practice. Writing practice. Very important for writing practice, especially for secondary students or for university students as well. Now over here we have a difference. So we now this writing practice is for both primary and for secondary students, form students, meaning secondary students. So this is mainly about the listening, the second listening that the students will hear, the second listening. So over here, the format, introduction, one paragraph, body, two paragraph, three paragraph should be enough. And then conclusion, one paragraph once again. And then who are these characters, men or women? So these are the questions they can answer over here so that it would help them, it guides them on to how they can curate their answers. And that's the last of it. That's the last page of lesson 1. Now, mostly it is similar to the few lessons out there, but some lessons do have different worksheets to keep the kids on their toes, and so that they don't feel they're just repeating the lessons over and over and over again. So it is quite fun. Try to keep it a fun environment so that the students can learn but also study at the same time, because we don't want to be dictators. We want to let them, we want to be their teachers. Have we want to we want them to learn, to succeed, but also have a little fun while doing it. Okay, and now I'm going to be closing out. So I'm Miss Zenith once again, head trainer of Tayessa. And if you have any questions, you can email us or you can send us a message on WhatsApp to our global number 5119-3401. Before that should be a +852. And our email at info@tayesla.com. You can email us, you can send us a message if you don't understand, and we'll be happy to help you. And I'll see you later for Junior IELTS Level 2.